In this video, I'll give you my predictions and picks for UFC Vegas 91, and since there wasn't a video earlier in the week, we're going to do things a bit differently. As always, you can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. So again, since there's no predictions video, we'll do things a bit differently. I'll tell you why I like the fighters that I like to win and for the reasons that I think they're going to win as we go through, but at the top here, instead of starting with value plays, I'm just going to give you my picks for the entire card. Some of you are going to appreciate this, I know. So my picks this week from top down will be Matias Nicola winning in the main event. I like Ryan Spann to win in the co-main event. I like Karine Silva over Lipski. I like Jhonata Diniz to make good on his UFC debut. I like David Onama to upset Jonathan Pearce this week. I like AOS Medic. Give me Victor Henry. Give me Austen Hubbard as a dog over Michal Figlak. The Brazilian Caio Machado at near even money over Dantel May this week is where I land. I got Ketlen Souza to beat Marnic man. James Lontop over a very short notice UFC debutant replacement Chris Padilla. Ivana Petrovic over Na Liang. I've got Mahashate over Gabriel Benitez. Now, do I feel like Rudy Tabuti entering the chalk zone by picking all these favorites? Of course I do. It's hard to argue with many of these, especially like Mahashate, Petrovic, Lontop, and I'll share more of my thoughts on these matchups as we go through, but now we can get into the value plays. These are going to be plays at 8,000 and below on DraftKings, so we'll fix the way the salary is sorted. We'll go from top down. You're not going to win a DraftKings tournament without having underdogs in your lineup. You can't build a DraftKings lineup without having underdogs in your lineup, so we're going to have to make some room and maybe play some guys or some gals that we're not all that high on. Before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. All free ways to support the channel. It goes very far. Every time you like, that's another morsel of food we give Oscar. But who are the value plays that we're going to plug in after getting pickle smacked at UFC 300? Well, there are a few that I like this week. You have Dantel May. Now, do I think that May is going to win? No, I don't. I think that he loses on volume. I think that Caio Machado is just going to be a bit more active with his hands, land a bit more, maybe have bigger moments, and Dantel May frankly just does stupid things in there. He's one of the more frustrating fighters to watch because you look at Dantel May, he's spent more than half of his career in the UFC. He stands there at 6'6" with an 81-inch reach, so he's not only big for the weight class, he's just huge as a person, a giant of a man. And he's been training with Jon Jones for years, and none of that's rubbing off. He doesn't really appear to be getting any better fight after fight, and he does things that are questionable. He'll throw some flying knees or some jumping kicks. I've never seen a man this big leave his feet this much unless I was watching NBA basketball. And the wins that he has in the UFC don't really jump off the page. The Andrei Arlovski win is a good win, even though it's against the ghost of Andrei Arlovski. Still a lot of respect to be had there. Beats Josh Parisian, probably not going to be in the UFC much longer. Rocky Martinez, not in the UFC, winless in the promotion. And you're probably at this point thinking, Kunith, if you're saying all these mean things, you're saying all these bad things about Dantel May, why would he be in value play consideration? Well, here's why. He's got the best odds on paper. Shout out Anthony Smith. He's got the best odds on paper when it comes to any of these guys. He's the only one that's not at plus money when you look at fighters that are below 8,000. And again, this is a fight card where a lot of the favorites out of these 13 fights, in my opinion, look really good. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 11 of the favorites win and only 2 underdogs win this week, and Dantel May has as good a chance as anybody to show up on that list. Reason being is because Dantel May is tough. He is going to hang in there. I know a lot is made about volume, and even I said that. I think that Caio Machado is going to out-volume him, but Dantel May will throw a lot of strikes if you allow him the time and space to do so. Caio Machado lets you do that. You saw Machado in that fight against Mick Parkin. He just kept moving backwards. He stayed busy. He threw a lot of volume. He threw a lot out there, but he wasn't really sitting down on his punches. He was more just touching him, and that really will lead itself to going the distance against guys at the UFC level. So if you're sitting there going strike for 15 minutes, I think that Dantel May might have better body language than Caio Machado come the third round, and there's a chance that whenever you go to the judges' scorecard, you're always in it. These guys are going to be throwing a bunch of strikes, going the distance. Neither of them is getting taken down. Cool. You're in it. You have a chance, and Dantel May could score you, say, north of 80 DraftKings points, and that may be all it takes this week. Our next value play is $7,600 David Onama. This is a very fun fight between featherweights, and it can really go either way. You've got Jonathan Pearce coming in favored here, coming off of a loss to Joe Anderson Brito in a meme of a finish if you've ever seen one. If you don't remember, let me fill you in. Jonathan Pearce is holding Brito down. He's maintaining position. Brito starts chirping him from bottom, gets in Jonathan Pearce's head a little bit. Pearce gets frustrated and he blurts out, "Get up and do something, boy." And there was a lot of twang on how he said boy, might I add. But Brito pops right back up, slaps on a ninja choke, and nearly rips JSP's head off. Embarrassing stuff. He goes from top position to tapping inside seconds. But Jonathan Pearce, don't let that fool you. The guy is a monster. He's one of the better wrestlers in the division. We've seen David Onama taken down by lesser wrestlers, and that's where Jonathan Pearce is going to have the advantage. If he can get his wrestling going, he's going to give Onama trouble. But it's a tough one for Jonathan Pearce because David Onama is very explosive. He hits super hard, and he can dig deep even when the fight's not going his way. He's never going to give up on himself, but he is going to give up takedowns. We've seen him taken down 13 times in 5 UFC fights. Mason Jones, who's no longer with the promotion, took him down 8 times. Nate the Train took him down 3 times. Gabriel Santos took him down twice in that fight, and it didn't see a third round. The only fighter who's tried to take him down and hasn't been able to do it was Garrett Armfield, but Garrett Armfield was up a weight class on short notice making his debut. Apart from that, everybody who's wanted to take him down has done so. And Jonathan Pearce might be wrestling more than anybody in the division right now, not named Movsar Evloev. But where I like David Onama here is not only the power, but you look at JSP's run in the UFC, he hasn't seen a great striker yet. On top of that, David Onama is extremely physically strong. The only fighter that JSP has seen that's probably as strong, if not stronger than Onama, might be Joe Anderson Brito. And if Pearce comes out here with that wrestling heavy approach, and he's trying to take down this big, strong guy in David Onama, after a while, these takedowns are not going to come with as much speed, not going to come with as much technique, and they're not going to be as frequent. So you could see him falling to his knees trying to secure takedowns. And it's going to put him in a tricky spot because David Onama might just pop right back up. Jonathan Pearce doesn't have elite top control by any means. And while these guys are at range, I think Onama wins every minute of the fight that's standing. So when I consider that Onama has never been finished, he's the stronger guy of the two, he hits way harder, he's coming in with more momentum, he's at plus money, I'm going to take all that. I see Onama showing off that power, maybe throwing something up the middle like a knee or an uppercut, catching Jonathan Pearce, hurting him early and often, but then finishing him late in this fight. I think we get a 3rd round TKO, maybe a 2nd round TKO by David Onama. Either way, great value this week. He has access to that 95-point ceiling. The next value play, and a guy you have to have exposure to, is Alex Perez, because Alex Perez is going to take the fight to Matias Nicolau more so than Nicolau is going to take it to Alex Perez. What Perez lacks in power, he makes up for in forward movement, leg kicks. He can wrestle effectively if he needs to. I don't think that Nicolau is going to be able to take him down at all. There's a good chance that these guys end up going to war. There's also a good chance where Matheus Nicolau just outpoints him. He's just a ghost in there. He can't be caught, he can't be hit, he can't be touched. Nicolau makes very good adjustments on the fly, and I think that Alex Perez is going to start to fall into a very predictable rhythm. Even against Muhammad Mokaev, where he was having success, he did start to fall into a predictable rhythm. That's why Mokaev was able to get takedowns even when he was in a bad position. Now, Perez can wrestle here if he wants to. If I was in his corner, I would tell him not to because he's susceptible to getting choked out. It's happened multiple times before. Matheus Nicolau is no slouch on the mat. But Alex Perez does have 25 minutes to work. I think this fight does go the distance. He's going to have success, and I don't know what Matheus Nicolau is going to look like in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round fighting at a high pace. The skills have always been there for Alex Perez, and I wouldn't be surprised if he went on to win this fight. Take his last fight, for example, against Muhammad Mokaev. If that was a 5-round fight, he was going to drown that man. Mokaev is able to hold on, he gets the nod, but Perez was taking it to him on the feet. So I like the forward pressure, I like the leg kicks, I like that he has 25 minutes to work. Like the Dantel May situation, I like that this probably goes the distance. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Alex Perez steal one this week. Now, do I think you need to roster the main event? We'll talk more about that later, but Alex Perez should be in your value play consideration at 7,500. And the last real value play that we'll look at, so I think your player pool when it comes to your underdog should consist of the couple of guys that we talked about so far, but Bogan Guskov needs to be in value play consideration. And also, I see a lot of people saying, Anthony Smith this, Anthony Smith that. Let's get one thing straight. You look at a picture of Bogan Guskov and you look at a picture of Anthony Smith, it doesn't matter if Anthony Smith was there first. He is the evil Bogan Guskov. Let's be real. But jokes aside, this is a very winnable fight for Bogan Guskov. I do prefer Spann because he's taller, he's longer, and Bogan Guskov does tend to leave himself pretty open, kind of like Yuri Prohaska without the Yuri Prohaska durability. You look at Guskov's last performance against Zach Paunga, he finishes him with a sequence of punches that starts with his backhand, and he's standing so square, he's almost like SpongeBob, and he decides to throw the backhand first, which starts the combination. But that backhand against somebody as long, as tall, as sharp as Ryan Spann can be in that opening round probably leaves him open to getting caught. That's bad biscuits, and bad biscuits make the baker broke, and that's what Bogan Guskov is up against this week. He's got to find a way to close that distance without leaving himself as open, because if he does, all it really takes is one. Ryan Spann is tough, but these guys are big, they're throwing heavy leather. Nobody's going to take too many clean shots from Bogan Guskov and keep that consciousness intact. stacked. So if there was ever a puncher's chance on a card down at 7,300, it's Bogan Guskov more so than anybody else down at this range. I think that his round one upside is as high as anyone on the card, even Ryan Spann. He's definitely somebody you want in value play consideration this week. You saw last time out he scored 107 DraftKings points and only landed 10 significant strikes. That's the kind of power that this guy has. Now, he's not in Kansas anymore. This is not Zach Paunga. This is Ryan Superman Spann we're talking about, who has made some poor decisions in the octagon. I've even been critical of some of the decision making, the fight IQ stuff in the past, but one thing that you cannot say about Ryan Spann is that on his best day, he's bad. It's not true. He's a tough guy for anybody. Ryan Spann's never been in a boring fight either, so don't be surprised when you see this fight go under. That's what I think is a lock when it comes to a betting perspective. This fight is going to go under, and Bogan Guskov down at 7,300, somebody you want exposure to, I would recommend being overweight to the field. I almost forgot, hold on, we've got Austen Hubbard there as well. Austen Hubbard, somebody you need to have in value play consideration because of this right here, these takedowns. We saw Michal Figlak just get destroyed. Maybe not destroyed. Destroyed seems like the wrong word. Dominated would be the better word by Firas Ziem. Firas Ziem is very smart, very technical, knows where and when to use the advantages that he has over his opponents, but he's not somebody that should be able to hold you down on the mat each and every round. One takedown per round was winning the fights for Firas Ziem. You got my boy Thud Hubbard here, who's coming in off of a loss to Kurt Holloway, which in hindsight looks awful after what Kurt Holloway looked like against Trey Ogden. He was able to get takedowns there. He was able to get takedowns in fights in the past, like against Vince Pichel, who also has bad takedown defense, against Dakota Bush, who also has bad takedown defense. But when Michal Figlak showed that he had no answers for the wrestling when it came to the Firas Ziem fight, that just gives me all the confidence in the world that Thud Hubbard's going to be able to take him down and keep him down in this fight. And even if he doesn't, Austen Hubbard is very tough. He fights out of a much better gym. He's going to have good cardio for 3 rounds to be able to get it done. Teeps up the middle, keep that jab in his face, just stay busier. I was surprised to see him as the underdog here because I did not really see... I was really surprised to see Figlak as the favorite here because, one, recency bias is huge, and I guess we haven't seen him in a long time, so that's kind of faded a bit, but he was a favorite over Firas Ziem and looked awful. Made his debut, took his first loss, but you have Austen Hubbard, who's been there, done that, a bit older than Figlak, but not so much older that I think the age gives Figlak any kind of advantage, so I'm going to take Austen Hubbard to win the fight, one of my preferred dogs this week, and that is what your value pool player pool should look like. Value pool player pool. Oscar, what are you writing here? Just leave it in because I want the people to see just how ill prepared you were this week. This is why it's taken so long to put the video out. Goodness me. As far as the other underdogs, I mean, I'm sure people are gonna try to make a case for Gabriel Benitez. I don't like it. Austin Lane, former NFL guy, but I think he's gonna be on the wrong side of some unnecessary roughness this week. Tim Means is old. Marnic, man, probably not UFC caliber. Chris Padilla just up against it this week. I think Lon Top is going to put it on him. I really like James Lon Top actually coming into the UFC. Liang Na is meme, and then Rani Yahya, old and a meme. So I actually am cool with the player pool that we have for the value plays this week. Now we can start building some lineups, but before we do, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. If you want the official bets for the week, you can visit kunithmma.com. That's where you'll get the official betting article for the week. You'll also get all of the DFS resources like the DFS strategy guide, lineup optimizer, tools, data, projections, access to the community tab, everything. We would have had a profitable UFC 300 despite the picks getting smoked from a betting perspective if Jason Herzog decided to not peel the lifeless Chinese girl up off of the mat. Zhang Wei Li won the fight by submission in the first round, and that was also on the... Zhang Wei Li won the fight in the first round. She won by submission, and that was also the prop of the week in the email that I sent all of you at plus 500. And Jason Herzog said, no, let me help her up. And she's stumbling all over the place, lifeless body. He's like, no, we'll keep fighting. Maybe you have a chance. And then she goes on to get dominated for 3 of the 4 remaining rounds. She got finished twice in that fight, basically. You can also grab the lineup optimizer if you want for $5.99. That's included in the total access package, but if you just want the lineup optimizer that is preloaded started with the projections for the week. It's going to work for captain mode. It's going to work for classic. You can set your own projections. You can also set your own rules. Back to the breakdown, we can build our cash game lineup for the week. For your cash game lineups, which are great for MMA DFS, I prefer them for this version of DFS than any other sport. I don't really play NFL cash games or NBA cash games or anything like that, but for MMA, they are excellent, and I'm going to tell you how to build one this week. We have a very stackable main event because it's one that probably goes the distance. You're going to take Matias Nicolau at 8,700. You're going to come down here and grab the other side in Alex Perez at 7,500, of course. Now, as always, we're going to look for a punt play, and this is going to be a punt play that probably goes the distance, somebody who's going to land a decent amount of strikes. Typically, you want them to have a path to victory. You want them to win. There are two ways that you can go this week, but we'll do for the video at least. It's going to be Chris Padilla sitting at 6,900. And you might be thinking, jumping Jehoshaphat's Kunith, he's making his UFC debut on short notice. Why? Because James Lontop is not some big power puncher. James Lontop is a volume guy, and I could see him going the distance this week. Padilla seems like a tough guy. He's here because he can actually make the weight. He can make the walk, and I think it'll be a somewhat competitive fight, but I see it going the whole 15. And down at 6,900, even in a loss, you really are not going to need that much from him. And look at what it's opened up for us on a card that is very chalky. It's very favorite heavy, so the world is our oyster. We can do whatever we want. Let's grab Machado there at 8,800. Let's grab Ryan Spann there at 9,000. We come right up here to Diniz at 9,000. I'm happy with this. If you want to change it up a little bit, that's fine, but the logic needs to be the same. You stack your main event, you grab your punt play, and you fill the rest of your lineup with favorites that you think are going to win. Do they need to score all that much? Not really. If you're feeling a little uncertain about one of them and you want to change them out for somebody that you think is a bit more safe, if you want to pay up for Victor Henry at 9,500 because you know he's going to win, then cool, do that. But just make sure to stack the main event at the very least. If you grab Victor Henry, then you're forced to play one of these punt options anyway, so somebody probably below 7,300, and you should do just fine, not only on this card, but for the cards to come. If you build your cash game lineups like that, it should serve you better than just trying to pick 6 winners outright, because most of the time you're not going to get it right. For your tournament lineups, you scallywags, what we're going to do is we're going to try to build what would be, I would assume, a pretty chalky lineup. Diniz should be somebody in your lineups. I think he's very fairly priced at 9,000 for what his upside can be. Austen Lane is welcoming him to the UFC, but Austen Lane has fought in the UFC twice. First fight against Justin Tafa ends because of an eye poke. Okay, they run it back. He gets slept in the first round. And that fight against Justin Tafa is really concerning for this one because Austen Lane was looking very fast, very sharp, diverse attack at the beginning, throwing kicks at all levels for the first minute of this fight. What's concerning is he got dropped basically by the first clean strike that Justin Tafa landed, and I know that Justin Tafa has serious power. I know that. But Jhonata Diniz has tons of power as well, and the thing is, he's much bigger than Justin Tafa. And what I like about Diniz is that there's no feeling out process. He's going to come straight at you, and that's the thing, is he's going to come at you fast. He's cleaner than Justin Tafa. He's got that 100% finish rate, that rich kickboxing background that shows and translates well in these fights. I think Austen Lane is going to be more athletic, and he's going to look more athletic in there. That will be the case for Lane versus most of the guys he's matched up with at heavyweight. But Diniz is the better fighter. I think he's going to close the distance quickly. They're going to be in boxing range, and he's going to touch him up, because you look at that fight against Justin Tafa, Austen Lane is 6 inches taller, his arms are 6 inches longer, and Justin Tafa catches him with ease. Not only does he catch him, he catches him with a hook, a looping shot. Not only that, but it's not like he caught him up against the cage using tall guy defense or something like that. No, they've both got a decent amount of real estate behind them, and you've got Austen Lane just standing in the pocket, and you see Justin Tafa with that big slow hook. Boop. Jhonata Diniz is 6'4" with a 79-inch reach. He's going to be able to catch him and reach him a lot easier than Justin Tafa should have been able to. So if Tafa can land and finish him with one of the first strikes that he really committed to, I don't see why Diniz can't do the same thing. I think he knocks him out in the first round, scores north of 100 DraftKings points. Someone who should be in your lineup. He should be in a lot of people's lineup. Another guy I think a lot of people will play is Jonathan Pearce. You know I prefer the Onama side, but if Pearce wins, he's going to score a lot. Look at these scores that he's posted. 104, 145, 96, 123, 134. He posts really high scores. He's one of these guys that can break the slate with his wrestling. A J. Almeida kind of guy, Marab, Ricky Simone. These volume takedown guys are rewarded more so than anybody else when it comes to DraftKings scoring, so Jonathan Pearce should be in your player pool this week. You know, again, I prefer the Onama side. Let's say you're running single entry or something. David Onama's a fine play, but don't sleep on playing Jonathan Pearce if you're running more than one lineup. So now I've got 8,100 left over. I would assume that the more popular underdog this week would probably be Alex Perez. I'd see a decent amount of people coming here to Gabriel Benitez as well. And the reason why I say that is because when I first saw this, first reaction, knee-jerk reaction was Gabriel Benitez probably knocks this guy out. Machado looked terrible last time out. But Gabriel Benitez is a lot older, and he's going to be a lot smaller than Mahashate, and Gabriel Benitez does not respond well to big, powerful punchers, big, powerful, athletic guys like Mahashate, so I think Mahashate packs him up, but I do see a lot of people getting here for the same reason I probably would have if I was forced to make a lineup as soon as I saw the fights released. 87.50 left over per fighter. We can come up here, grab Karine Silva. She averages 109 DraftKings points nearly. With 9,000 left over, you left 100 salary on the table by playing Ryan Spann. I don't mind this lineup at all. If I were to enter a single entry lineup right now, this is not the lineup I would go with, but there is a story that this one tells. You've got first round upside, highest ceiling on the card, 25 minutes to work and good leverage off of the main event favorite. Gabriel Benitez could spring an upset down at 7,400, and if he does win, it's probably by knockout, and it's got to be early in the first or second round. Karine Silva, she does what she does, 104, 99, 123. All it takes is one takedown from this woman, a beast on the mat. And we've seen Ariane Lipski struggle with strong grapplers before. And then Ryan Spann, we've seen him post good DraftKings scores as well with early finishes like over Dominic Reyes where he dropped him with a jab. 92 against Iwan Kutelaba. You'll notice too, this had dog pricing. He's not typically getting a whole lot of respect on the betting line. 107 there, 112 there, and you're seeing these finishes as well. I think he has more ways to win this fight, more ways to finish this fight, and he's probably somebody who comes in highly owned but pays off that salary. I like it. Let's blow it up and let's build something new. Let's go with Uros Medic because Uros Medic is a knockout kind of guy. 100% finish rate, not just in the UFC, but as a professional fighter. You've got a knockout there, a knockout there, a knockout there. He's knocking these guys down. Most of the time, they're not getting back up. This was a come from behind kind of win over Matt Semmelsberger as well, so it kind of showed that ability to fight from behind, which you always like to see because some fighters just don't have that. There are fighters on this card who do not fight well from behind. There are guys that are front runners, there are guys that are even keel throughout the fight, but Uros Medic is somebody who's always in it. Last time out he gets ragged by Oralby, but that's going to happen to a lot of people. I don't really fault him for that. And now he's got an old Tim Means across from him who's a tough guy, but he's also struggled with power as of late. So Uros Medic, somebody who should be there. I like him there. I like Ketlen Souza as well because on the feet she is nasty. I don't think too many people are going to get here. She's expensive. It's women's MMA. Fight log watchers will come in here and see that she threw up that goose egg last time out. So what that tells me is she's probably going to come in pretty low owned. We have her projected for pretty low ownership, so I will pay that price to be able to get different. Now I've got 79.22 left over per fighter, 79.25, excuse me. So now I got to come down here. I got to get a bit cheaper. In this lineup, I probably would go with somebody like Bogan Guskov just for the salary relief. I might also throw in there some David Onama because we clearly need to save a bit more salary, and then I'll go with Lontop, and then I'll go with Machado there. It's hard to not play Karine Silva, to be honest with you, but we can play this lineup, that's fine. Or if you want to take Machado out, put Karine Silva in there, that's fine with me too. Another thing we can do is just take a look here. You've got a second round knockout by Carnelozzi, a first round knockout by Suarez, a second round knockout by JJ Aldrich. To tell you the truth, Liang Na's not very good. She had a good career prior to coming in the UFC when she was Eastern, but if you've been playing DFS for a while or betting on the sport or doing your research or watching videos like this, you know that we've all seen our fair share of fighters coming out of the East whose records just look great and then they show up and they're not very good. That's what you're getting out of Liang Na, because she comes out there 100 miles per hour. She has to have the worst gas tank of a woman this size I've ever seen. She's right up there with Gina Mazzani. Like, if her and Gina Mazzani fought, it would be like watching a tiny female version of Kimbo Slice versus Dada 5000. So she probably gets packed up here, and her opponents have scored really well in the past. So with that said, if you wanted to go with Petrovic, you could do that. Now I might go with Diniz, I might go with Karine Silva. This lineup is super different already because of Petrovic. I can come down here with my 7,700 left over. I can grab Alex Perez, I can grab Thud Hubbard, 7,800 left over. I'm still stuck in this range, I gotta play somebody. Let's put Guskov in there. Now I don't want to completely get rid of this, so let me just take these guys out. I'm gonna keep Diniz in there, I'm gonna keep Silva in there. Those are two you could feel really good about, in my opinion, this week. But I am going to go up here to Machado because he's got that early upside. You saw what he did against Steve Garcia. Dominated him in the first round. Landed 7 strikes, 2 knockdowns. First round knockout, pretty easy work. 7,900 left over, so I'm going to come down here, grab one of my value plays. Let's say I grabbed Austen Hubbard. Let's say I grabbed somebody like Alex Perez then, and I've got 8,400 left over, and I just grabbed Lontop. I'm cool with that. Let's build something that's kind of in that mid-range, because sometimes you want to be DeMar DeRozan in the mid-range, because if you can do that, if you can knock these down, you're in a good spot. So if I went with Karine Silva, if I went with JSP, if I went with somebody like Machado and Lontop, what's that leave me with? 8,200 left over. I'll come down here to Guskov, so now I can afford an expensive piece. Let's grab Mahashate. I don't mind this at all, and you're probably noticing Kuna. You haven't put Nicolau in any of these lineups. Well, I will for you in just a second, but I do want to squelch one thing before you start thinking about it. I don't want you to think it's some kind of conspiracy where it's like, oh, look, he didn't build a lineup with Matias Nicola. That must mean that Matias Nicola is his favorite play, and he's going to go nuclear this week, and he didn't want us to know about it. I say that because I see people say stuff like that. Not on my stuff typically, but I do see it on other people's stuff, like when it comes to other sports, like especially NFL. Oh my God, he didn't talk about Cole Beasley. Notice how he didn't make a lineup with Tyler Boyd? It's because Tyler Boyd is a choke artist. But anyway, I don't have Matias Nicolau in there because I just don't think he's going to score all that well. He has scored well in the past, but I think against Alex Perez, he's going to let minutes slip by. I think that he wins, but if he breaks 110 DraftKings points, I'll be shocked. I don't even think he's going to be that highly owned this week. I think he's going to be one of the most highly owned fighters, but not the most. I think he might be the 3rd or 4th highest owned fighter this week. I'm just not all that high on him. I think that if you are going to attack the main event, the one side that you want to play would be Alex Perez, but I'm not going to play Matias Nicolau this week. If you want to, cool. And I'll build a lineup giving you a look. Let's say we put Matias Nicolau in there. Let's say we go Machado, Silva, Lontop, come down here to Thud, 8,500 left over. At that point, you're probably coming back down here. Grab Guskov, leave 1,200 salary on the table because it helps you get different. And if you want to tell a story for this lineup, you've got first round upside, you've got takedowns, you've got huge matchup. This guy's like a minus 450 favorite at 8,200. He's probably somebody who's going to be pretty popular this week if both fighters are able to make the walk. We've talked about Karine Silva. You've got Machado with that high volume you saw last time out. 103 strikes, 76 significant strikes while spending a good amount of time getting pushed up against the cage and moving backward. And then you've got Matias Nicolau with 25 minutes to work in the main event, which again, he'll probably be the 3rd, 4th highest owned fighter on the slate, pulling slightly more ownership than Alex Perez, but nothing crazy. But everybody who plays Alex Perez, you will jump them. You will get that leverage over them by playing Matias Nicolau, if that means anything to you at all. And if you want some free money this week, you can play Underdog Fantasy. I'm going to post my slip on Twitter as well as on the community tab on YouTube, so that way you can see what entries I like this week. I don't know how long this video is going to run, so I'm going to leave that part out of the video, but I appreciate you all for watching. I wish you the best of luck. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, visit the website, do all that good stuff. Load up for next week's pay-per-view, and I will see you next week. Let's go.